Hi, lovies. It's Christina from Karma's Eyes Psychic LLC here on Universal Spirit Podcast. So, today's episode is going to be about the twin flame conversation, the twin flame fascination. We've all heard about twin flames. We all have different ideas, perspectives, experiences on what a twin flame really is. This conversation is going to be, or this episode is going to be, not so in depth, but just general as usual, about the idea of a twin flame. As always, please comment your experiences and definitely chime in whenever you feel that your information might be, helpful to the conversation. So the question then begins with, what is a twin flame? A twin flame can be described as almost 1,000 things, but the most common is that a twin flame is basically the other half of your soul. Most of us who are spiritual believe that your soul was made into two parts. It's split into two parts, and this twin flame, or this soulmate, so to speak, is the person, another, human being that you are not only meant to find, meant to see, but also experience life with. People make assumptions that you are meant to experience life positively when you meet your twin flame. How others have this idea that twin flames can also be the most toxic people, in your life. One of the similarities in ideas of twin flames are people who just cannot stop being in your life. They come in and out of your life. They find their way back in. They find their way out, and vice versa. You find your way into their life. They find their way into yours. A lot of people believe that a twin flame is not an obvious person. It's not an obvious person that you spot. It really is an act of serendipity, an act of synchronicity? Is that how you say the word? And basically an idea of destiny. For those of us who believe in destiny, that you are not going to get through your life without doing this one thing or a couple of things, which would be defined as destiny. So a twin flame is often associated with destiny. That you were going to meet them no matter what. You're going to run into them. They were going to experience life with you. The idea of a twin flame in a lot of social settings would be that this person is your soulmate. Soulmate being your long-term romantic partner, and you were going to experience the most love with this person, the most unconditional love, the most support, and everything positive that you can think of that would come from a relationship. You were going to have the best sex with this person. You were going to have the best conversations, get to the highest levels of intimacy with this person. Basically, this person is basically on the inside of you, and everything you want and hope for or desire just manifested outward as a separate entity or a separate person. So they hold the keys to a lot of your, deepest secrets and the dark side, and vice versa. You are also the key to their dark side, the key to their desires and, utmost, values of whatever they are searching for in this world. In a lot of social spiritual beliefs, that twin flames can be found by numbers. The typical 1111, the 333, the 444, angel numbers, spirit numbers, just synchronicity numbers, numerology numbers, repetitive numbers, numbers that resonate with you, and resonate with your life situations, that your twin flame will be available or be visible to you during those times only, as if they are manifested as like a code, which some people also would debate that would prove that we live in a matrix, that a certain code is plugged in and then your twin flame shows up, just as an aside. right? Not really as a joke, just really that there are theories out there that are similar to that. That your twin flame can really be summoned by these numbers or synchronicities, or they only come on Tuesdays. These are some ideas that I have already run into. That's why we're talking about it. People say that your twin flame is a person that you deeply, deeply desire, but you cannot have. They're always out of reach, but yet they'll always understand you more than with the people that they are around. Oftentimes understanding you better than you understand yourself. Almost like a spiritual connection, but on a higher level. Some people describe their twin flame as a spiritual connection almost on a lower level. A person that you just cannot stop teaching. You cannot stop mentoring. You can't stop being their guide. You can't stop being their, their safe haven for something. When they do wrong or do whatever, they always end up coming back to you, and you are always, receiving them. It doesn't always mean that you're hurt by this person. It doesn't always mean that there's wrongdoing. It just means that every time that they are around, every time that they need something, you are the one to fulfill that need. Some twin flame relationships don't require any type of sexual connection at all. Some people are just deeply in love with each other, whether they say it or not. And like I said, it could be a person that's out of reach. They could be married to someone else. They could be of the same gender. And that is not, smiled upon originally. However, nowadays things have changed so much. Thank goodness that the world is becoming more open-minded and becoming a little bit more intelligent to understanding that your physical body is not a limit to what your heart is attracted to. Okay, so your twin flame could be of the same gender. And there have been instances where I have had people tell me that they have a twin flame of the same gender, and they are not in any way homosexual. They just have this connection, like a soulmate friend, or like feeling like they're sisters, or feeling like they're brothers, or feeling like they have shared a life before. So that's also another thought about twin flames, that these people are always with you during every single lifetime. That every time you live life, you always run into them. You always find a way to be in their life. If you are the type to always want to teach or to be there, this twin flame will always be someone that just can't get things correct. Being the fact that it is a belief that your soul is split, it would be that there's a part of you that technically can't get right, and vice versa. If you're experiencing life through the eyes of the person who cannot get right, then there's the other half of you that knows what to do, will always be there for you, that will always support you, that will always take care of you. That is another way of looking through the eyes of a twin flame, that yourself is always catching you when you fall. Twin flame situations, like I said, do not always have to be sexual or romantic. That is the main idea of twin flames. Nowadays, I would say in older beliefs that twin flames would be more of people who just love you unconditionally. The soul split, or just love you unconditionally. Now, when we get to the conversation about how toxic your twin flame can be, then that is a conversation that people have often said that that's how they have a hard time letting go of toxic situations. For a person to be arrogant and to be dismissive of you, but yet you can't stop loving them or being around them, or just needing their energy. Breaking that toxic cycle is very difficult, especially when you label them as a twin flame. It is very possible for people who are very responsible and very ambitious, or, very well-to-do, to have a twin flame that is the opposite, socially, to always be committing crimes, or to always, be under the radar. And that is like a twin flame to you, because you're always fascinated by their lifestyle, you're fascinated by their energy, their confidence, and vice versa. That person is fascinated by you, how you can always be so straight and narrow, and they can be just wildly walking through life and you both fascinate each other. Being polar opposites and that being a toxic situation, obviously, because those relationships don't work out at all. Those things do not mesh well together when one wants to be responsible and the other one, deliberately wants to live a life of chaos. You can't stop the drive for one, or the other. And trying to change your twin flame is definitely the wrong move. If you were to change your twin flame, they would no longer be a flame. You would have now morphed this person into what you are, and then make them need the same things that you need, which is now that does not no longer exist. Just to keep in mind about also what the dangers are of changing people. Okay, so whatever it is that you crave in them will definitely dwindle and die and be no longer, will not exist anymore. And understanding and appreciating people for who they are definitely does keep a twin flame relationship alive. People have often made these, accusations of having a twin flame while they're married to someone else. That the love that they have for their spouse is not the same type of love that they have for this affair they might be having, which is their twin flame. Is this possible? Yes, it is possible, because the person that you are twin flame in love with, or twin flame cannot get away from, this spiritual attachment that you claim that you do have with this person, okay, doesn't mean you do not love your spouse, but the love that you have for this twin flame is either more wild or maybe more, intimate. It's something deeper than you are going with your current spouse or current girlfriend or boyfriend or whoever you're going with. There's also a lot of safety in understanding a twin flame relationship with a married person, where it's like, oh, I get to live the life of this. I get to live dual lives. I can be the good wife, and I can also be, this tramp at the same time. The twin flame relationship would then be learning how to manage your ego. So that would be your spiritual lesson to learn during this lifetime, to manage your ego. Will you get hurt? There's no guarantee. However, those situations don't tend to work very well, considering the laws that govern marriage, and what, penalties that there are for having affairs outside of marriage, even during marriage. That some people are unsure how they feel. Twin flames are supposed to align you. However, in those situations, I feel as though they do throw your emotions, if not your common sense, out of balance. You would also have to check the reasons why you married your spouse. It turns out karma has a lot to play in that. When you are feeling these, different feelings of love for someone else, your reasoning for marrying your spouse might not be as sound as you would have liked it to be. Maybe you really thought that you loved this person, but maybe you had some other, motives involved that have then manifested themselves, but was not enough to satisfy your heart. Your motives might have been social. Your motives might have been financial. Your motives might have been, I just want someone to accept the fact that I don't want to have kids, or want to have kids, or whichever. Someone to support your dreams, but at the same time, doesn't satisfy other maybe sexual needs, and so forth. So it does have a lot of karmatic things to it. The last idea of a twin flame are people that you have met in another life. They do come back. You have the relationship with them, and you are to heal that relationship. Whether having a smooth one or having a turbulent and toxic one. I believe that twin flames are people that are attached to you spiritually, and there's a lesson to be learned on both ends. One, that people who love unconditionally, if you were to find yourself on the positive side of a toxic situation, that the unconditional love that you were showing this person does in fact exist in you, even if you feel as though it is out of reach for you. The fact that you are exhibiting it and manifesting it into this lifetime, meaning that you will either have it in your next lifetime, or you are missing the big picture of the unconditional love living inside of you. Then the other person would then have to learn, if this was a toxic situation, just as an example, then the other person would have to learn that they are taking advantage of someone's unconditional love, and they have a lot of karma to settle with you, either from a previous life, or that this life will be the life that they will, gather up negative, karma, and then have to settle in the next life. And then the roles can even be reversed. Either way, I do believe in twin flames. They do not all have to be romantic. They are people that are in our lives that we have to settle some karma with, to really settle some unfinished business from other lifetimes. It could have been friends. It could have been people you've abandoned, people who've abandoned you, people that are drawn to you, and you might feel as though, why is this person drawn to me? You could be the confused party and say, like, why is this person always in my life? Or you could be the deliberate pursuer and saying that, I just cannot get away from this person. I'm in love with them, or I love them, or I just want to always show them kindness. Either way, it is a connection that is, in fact, very, very strong. And is definitely undeniable. And even, all the patterns of your lifestyle and the thoughts that you think, and even the things that you believe this person or this energy will always align up with that. And even in the toxic and turbulent times, they somehow sneak their way back in. The question I have, though, is that should twin flames last an entire lifetime? When does the healing begin? How do you know what needs to be healed? Is this positive karma to have a twin flame? Even with the toxic times, is a twin flame almost like a spiritual marriage? Some people do believe it's like a spiritual marriage, because, not even marriage is perfect. You got to deal with the ups and downs. You got to deal with some toxicity. You got to deal with forgiveness. You got to deal with a lot of intimacy that you might have had and might have missed. It's a really interesting conversation to have. We are, as a society, fascinated by the twin flame idea that everyone on this planet has a better half or another half, and someone that they are meant to spend their entire lives with. Does that mean they have to physically be involved? That they have to live in the same home? Do they have to be involved in the same things? Do they have to like the same things, like the sports or whatever? Or do their opposites really attract, and do their opposites really teach them lessons about, tolerance, forgiveness and acceptance? Does it have a lot to do with the acceptance in ourselves? Does it the acceptance of others, the acceptance of the ebb and flow of the universe? For us to not be so small-minded and believe that only people like us should be around, or only people like me are good enough, or only people like, me are, acceptable. That is a twin flame conversation. That is something I would like you guys to comment on. And what are your thoughts, and what are your beliefs about a twin flame? Like what would, what are the signs that would definitely make a twin flame, be present in your life? Some people believe that they have already met them, and they kind of pinpoint people and the lessons they've learned from their experiences. And some people believe that they are still looking for their twin flame, that they are still looking for that person that's going to teach them all their lessons, or, give them the highest level of love or respect, or whichever. There's a lot of conversation around this subject. So I definitely want you guys to share about this, comment, all of that. Definitely want to have a part 2 of this conversation. So this is Christina with Karma's Eye Psychic LLC on Universal Spirit Podcast. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. I hope you got something from it. And I will see you next week on our next spiritual subject. See you later. Lovies.